Hi, Pete. Okay, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, great to be here.
We're going to talk about entrepreneurship today, and in particular, again, about some of the hurdles that people have to go through before they set out on that journey. Um, um, I had sent you. You're a fan of always using new tools, and you and I have talked about the use of ChatGPT. And so
Yes.
I actually decided to ask ChatGPT. I said, "What are some of the most common insecurities that entrepreneurs face?" And just kind of asked it to give me a few. And I have a list here that I'd like us to explore together. And then you can. I would love to hear your own from your own experience for the
Yeah.
audience.
Actually, it was funny. I was reading through the list thinking, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Then when I got to the 10th one, I thought, oh, crap. Like, yeah, number 10 was the one that I thought out of everything. We could start with that first if you wanted to,
Sure,
because
sure,
that kind of
absolutely.
builds on all of the other ones.
Perfect, perfect. So number 10 for the listeners is I'm afraid of criticism and rejection. So Pete, why don't you tell us a
No,
bit about
the one about the no
Ah,
supportive network. Is that number
that
10?
that's number 12. That's number 12. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Okay. But
That
yeah,
was the one that I
let's start
got
with
to
that
that and
one.
I thought, yeah, wow, that's a big one.
Sure. So please tell us your experience about that.
Yeah, well, just I'm afraid that I don't have a supportive network. For me, that's the key to all of the other ones. If you have some kind of support network, that would be out of everything that we're probably talking about today. I would think, yeah, you got to get connected with like minded people. And I think that's crucial too, because the mindset of the people that you surround yourself with, you're going to adopt their fears and get confidence. So if you're hanging around other, like, let's call them newbies, that with similar fears as you, then you
Yeah.
might leave like a coffee meeting feeling even more depressed.
Yeah, sure.
But
Absolutely.
if you've actually spent like half an hour over coffee with someone that's actually doing good in business and walked away with just a few ideas of what they're doing that's working for their marketing, then you'll feel uplifted and think, crikey, this guy was a school dropout, like, or whatever, and he's made it work, and maybe there is hope for me.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. What has been have you found that to be commonly the experience? The listeners will have read your bio and they know you've traveled so much and worked internationally with so many people. Have you seen that is the case? People really do have this fear of like, okay, well, who's going to help me? What's my network? How do I make this work? And then what are some of the ways that they go about fixing that?
yeah. Yeah, early on, like they might just wake up in bed one morning with an idea. Hey, I'm going to sell shoes. I've always loved shoes, and but they know nothing about business. And from that step one, they might not even uh, have an idea of who's out there doing business like them, selling shoes. So, I mean, I always adopt a coaching approach. So, uh, in the world of classic coaching, there's really only two principles. One is a deeper awareness or clarity of the situation. What are the problems? What are the obstacles I'm going to face? And then, secondly, is what am I going to do about it? So the responsibility is on me. Like
Right.
the government's not going to roll up my door and say, "Hey, Pete, uh, I heard you got some business problems, and we just happen to have some
Yeah.
spare time and a bag load of cash. Here, take this." And uh, yeah, no, it's up to me. I have to be the initiator,
Right.
And even on your worst day, you learn very fast that if something's going to change, like don't wait for an angel or something to drop out of the sky. You're going to make something happen, even if it's just a call or and a good first step is connecting with people, other business people. And if you don't know any, just go out there and meet some and just say, hey, look, I'm new in town, or I'm in town here and I'm looking at a business and mine's going to be online. And I know you guys do a heap of things online too. So find that point of similarity or commonality to where you can connect and then just get some encouragement what they're doing.
Right, right. Do you think that that people are perhaps scared of that process as well, of the act? Not only are they scared of, or not only do they fear, hey, I don't have a network, a support network to help me, but they are also afraid of, in a sense, asking for help.
It can be, or they just don't know where to start. And from that point of view, like the first person that I was helping in the coaching with business coaching, I was just new in my coaching business, and I had a client that I was working successfully with, and she just said, "Look, my husband needs help. He's ready to quit his business. Can you do anything for him?" And I was just completely honest and said, "Look, I'm only new at business, but look, just send him in and let's see."
Yeah.
And we saw a 500% increase in his turnover in a very
Wow.
short time, just a few
Wow.
months. So,
Excellent.
and he was winning international awards and everything. So, uh, sometimes you don't need to have someone who's a champion in business. I certainly was not at that stage, but I was. I filled a support role for him in his business.
Right, right. That's really that's such a great point, and it makes sense that it we often undervalue the power of just a third party perspective. You know, very
Yeah,
often, I probably somebody's too close. The a family, a wife, a husband, a partner's perspective is, I think it's always welcome, but it's very difficult to see both hear it objectively, and for your family or loved one
yeah,
to give it objectively, right? But a third person coming in, kind of saying, listen, I think maybe you need to rearrange, realign here and there. That's much yeah, different.
yeah. It's easier when you don't have an emotional connection to the person.
Right.
Um, if you're the mum or the dad, your protective nature is going to
Yeah.
say, like, oh, wouldn't it be better just to get a job? It's more stable.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're gonna throw them off the track if you because you don't want your precious child, little Billy or Johnny, to lose his savings on some crazy business idea of selling shoes.
Right. 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 And that I think we're already touching on several of the other questions slowly, or several of the other insecurities that people will face,
Yeah,
which is, I don't have, I'm the fear of failure.
yeah,
You know, the fear of incompetence, the fear of not really, of not having enough experience, not having enough money. What are some of the things that, I mean, you must have
I
surely come
think
across these with other people from all over the world. What are some of the ways that you help coach them through that stuff?
yeah. I mean, the experience when I had a bit of a laugh because I thought, well, this is the first time in business. Of course, you're not going to have any
Right.
experience. But then, obviously, what do? You go out and get experience. Well, get knowledge. Knowledge is power, they say. And these days, like when I started out, we didn't really have an active internet. This is the early 2000s. I mean, internet was around, but there was not any place you could get like a
Yeah,
website, and
it was more
YouTube
for
was
big
only just,
corporate. Yeah.
yeah, it was the early developments. Now you've got whole platforms on YouTube just throwing out all types of business. Some channels are just focused on marketing, and others are focused on different other aspects of business. So there's a heap of information out there. So you can almost, as long as you have some kind of internet plan on a phone or something, um, like the knowledge that you're going to find it out there. And even better now with ChatGPT, you can actually literally just ask it, hey, write me a business plan for a guy who wants to sell shoes on the street, with zero, that's going to cost me $0. And that thing is going to come up with a great plan for you.
Yeah, it's a truly incredible tool. I think there's obviously different. It obviously is very new. It has its advantages and
Yeah.
disadvantages, its strengths and its weaknesses. I remember coming non sequitur, but I remember coming across recently an article where the question posed for the article was does ChatGPT, or does using AI, does it hamper or kind of take away the value of coaching? And I remember thinking, I can only imagine it augmenting the value of coaching,
Yeah.
because there's so many different. I mean, there, when you and I have spoken in the past, there's a handful of there's a handful, as you said, these classical models, these mental models that you can teach people for the coaching, and then the other things are maybe more personalized, more custom tailored, solutions. But ultimately, if you can't, the you can't keep all of this in your head. I mean, perhaps some people do, but
Yeah.
it's so much knowledge, right? And so it's probably much more efficient, right, to work more efficiently with your clients, to be respectful of their time and to and value, to say, hey, listen, ask ChatGPT, using such and such a framework for such and such a client, can you produce a schematic of a coaching plan that we could do? And then of course you custom tailor it to the needs of the client. But I can only imagine that. I wouldn't consider that cheating. I'd consider that delivering, premium value.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the coach can be like act as a resource. I mean, pure classical coaching would just draw out the options from the client. Whereas, like, if the client's expecting you to provide like schematics, business plan stuff in high detail, we're more moving into the area of consultations. And I think those two areas kind of bridge in some ways these days.
Yeah,
So there's
yeah,
all
yeah,
kind of hybrid mentoring, consultating, and coaching kind of people out there these
yeah,
days. Um, but yeah, certainly ChatGTP, where I would see it working with is, I'm primarily interested in uh, helping people get through the mental clutter,
yeah,
and for them to walk away with, hey, what's three things that I'm going to do in the next week? What's three
yeah.
goals? So more of the behavior, like ChatGPT, it'll give you a great plan, or at least options for a business plan, possible things. And it'll even throw out some concerns, like for you to consider uh,
Sure. Yeah.
choosing one of these three options. Um, but the next morning, you still got to get out of bed. so,
Yeah.
so with that, you might a good life coach might be someone that, because a person, a real flesh and blood person, is a higher value accountability partner than ChatGPT.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
that was I love that you touch on that because that was actually leading right into my next question, which is I think that the value of the person being the value of you having a physical coach, someone who's going to physically call you or follow up with you, hold you accountable.
yeah,
Like that's arguably where at least a third or half of the value of having that one-on-one coach is because they knock on your door, they text you, they call you and say, "Hey, listen, guy, where are you? What's going on? You know, you made
yeah,
promises to yourself. Now you got to show up." So,
yeah.
yeah,
Yep, true. I mean, I think there's an element where if you're relying on accountability, then should you actually be doing that kind of business? There should be some kind of internal motivation to get out of bed and do what you're doing. Otherwise, maybe at the moment that business plan can sit on the wall, and you might be able to do something more productive or motivating for this given time period. So accountability is good because there's things in business that are the mundane paperwork or whatever that you have to fill out and submit to some government website.
yeah, sure,
Yeah, no one's going to jump out. Well, very few people are going to jump out of bed and think, "Woohoo! I get to do some government forms today."
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's one of those things that can just get shoveled down the pile of papers. A coach will say, "Hey, that paperwork needs to be done by the 10th of this month. How's that going?"
yeah,
And yeah, so um, and I want that. I want a better uh, answer from you when I ask that in 2 days' time. So yeah, then the
yeah,
coachee is more than likely going to think, "Oh damn, okay, I'm just going to get this thing done." I know the
yeah.
coach is ringing me in 2 days' time, and yeah,
One of the things that you mentioned earlier as well in the first couple of minutes was the fear of all the insecurity that comes with entrepreneurship. The talk to us a little bit about again what your personal experience has been with that, and then also stuff that you've heard from clients and people around the world.
yeah, okay. Well, it can vary from person to person, I guess, because let's say someone who's just inherited 100,000 from his grandmother that just passed away last week. Um, he's not feeling insecure about financial problems. He's got money in the bank at least to support himself and start up a business for a good year. Um, someone else that might be the prime concern on their mind, like I need to make a profit from week one, or this thing, or I'm going to be back out on the street looking for work. So it can be, yeah, certainly different. Those concerns of fear of failure. Everyone's gonna have that fear of failure, and you just have to manage that fear and not let it control you. And I mean, my preference, and I take this from probably an Anthony Robin approach, is he always says it's easier to change your uh, physiology than your emotions or mental beliefs.
Yeah,
So,
of course.
meaning like, let's set a goal, whether you like it or not. I don't know all of the crazy reasons why you don't want to exercise every morning, but uh, just do it. Get out of
Yeah,
bed, go for a 5 minute walk. Do that every day for a month, and you're now an exerciser. Hey,
yeah,
that 5 minutes of exercise probably did you um, not much physical good, but hey, now you've established a habit. And
Right.
month 2, you're going out for a 10-minute walk. By month 3, you're going for a half-hour walk, and you're starting to, by that stage, to get some kind of real benefits.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so I tend to not focus. I mean, sometimes the most I would like to challenge is like, okay, list down your fears. What are they? And let's take a look at each one of those and get to the facts. So we're looking at clarity and awareness. Like, is that a serious threat here?
Right.
Um, yeah, get real, dude. You just told me
Yeah.
that you had 100,000 in the bank, and you're uh, worried about failure. Like,
Right. Right. Right.
yeah.
But I think
What
it's so
about?
important. It's so important
Yep.
that you mentioned context, right? Because the thing is that,
Yeah.
if you're someone who's, $200,000 in debt, $100,000 in the bank suddenly, I would still be that person that's afraid, because I'd be like, now I'm $100,000, now I'm out $100,000, so like the perspective
True.
is so completely different. And so that I think is really important for people to keep in mind, that it's
True.
so context dependent, and your own context, your own perspective, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would think like, hey, get real with the problem, analyze, and really ask yourself, is that a genuine problem here?
Yeah.
And number 2, what am I going to do about it? What's uh, one one action that I can do? Um, and you might just go to Chat GTP and say, "Hey, look, here's my fear. What are some ways that I can address this fear?"
Right, right. It's interesting. There's so many. Right now we're at this kind of crossroads where people of all, in all walks of life, are having this worry: is Chat GPT going to replace me? Is it going to, all this? And it's funny, because I think there are several answers to this, right? There's the answer from many people that I'm hearing, which is the more prevalent answer, which is, hey, this is no different than like the printing press and the steam machine, and like,
Yeah,
the train and the automobile. It's like invention happens, innovation happens, and then people go from being carriage drivers to being taxi drivers, right? Like that's really what happens, right? And so
yeah,
I
yeah,
think I think there's some truth to that, but I also think that there is something different, because there is now a a a feedback loop that appears to have some form of what we could call intelligence that we recognize, right? And
yeah,
so at that point, it becomes more a matter of again matching human skills with the technical tool. Then it
yeah.
becomes like, okay, well, I'm just going to go from being, again, the carriage driver to the taxi driver. It's like, it's not that qualitative leap is not so not so accurate.
I think ChatGTP, and this might be the quotable moment of the podcast. Maybe it's actually teaching us what it is to be human. What is that secret ingredient that we can bring to the table as humans?
Yeah,
I mean, and I mean, are you getting a human that says, "Hey, guy, you're doing really good. Like, keep going." That kind of that encouragement from another flesh and blood human is that's got a magical quality. So that's
sure,
one thing. And then the other thing I've noticed, because I've thought about this quite a bit with my
sure,
photography, and I mean now, like with Mid Journey and some of those
right, right,
AI sites, they're producing stuff that it would take a lifetime for me to capture. There's one photo that Midjourney can just recreate with the perfect break in the cloud and the sunrise, and Yeah. So I've realized that it's actually the story behind my photos that has the value.
Mm,
And ChatGPT, all of this technology brings us this left brain information, but it's the stories and the person that can say, hey, I can relate. I started my business with $0 in the bank, and that human connection is there's more magic in there than we actually realize. Yeah,
okay. Okay. No, that's wonderful. That's a
yeah,
wonderful perspective. I think of course the Harari. You all know Harari, the writer *Sapiens*. Maybe you've heard of the
yes,
book. He talks about how technology uh, has formed us as well in a way. It's not just us using it's not just us using the tool or developing the tool, but the tool has also always had this feedback loop into
yeah,
ourselves. And I think that's a fascinating concept. He's one of the people that I'm following most more closely with this whole AI thing takes off, because of the fact that he's also the one saying, listen, there's great potential for this, but that
yeah,
potential can swing either way, and we need to really start to think about frameworks to govern this, because it is a
yeah.
tool, and a fire can can cook you a great steak, and it can burn a town down. It's not it doesn't ask
Yeah.
questions. So
Uh, yeah, I think this is a really good topic, like the whole topic of technology too, because
mhm.
if you're uh, in the modern world, uh, like it or not, you're going to do a lot better with like a website, an app on your phone, or some kind of technology link to your business. And it's fascinating just to go to places in the world that have little or no technology. Like in the Pacific Islands, I was
Mhm.
there just 2 months ago, where you have not even power, and they charge their mobile phones on a generator in the church once a week.
Okay.
And most of the phones aren't smartphones; they're just the old Nokia.
Wow.
And just to look at the lifestyle there, and in a crazy way, it was so attractive. We're spending millions of dollars in the Western world to get what these people have, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah. Yeah.
literally. I was in this village and I was literally thinking, am I pinching myself? Am I
Yeah.
really here? Like, is this paradise? I don't know. Maybe it's the closest I've ever been, because, I mean, you're in the islands. You've got access to the beach. You've got palm pet trees, coconut trees.
Yeah. Yeah.
And um, the only thing I saw was their diet was a little overbalanced, heavy on the
Right.
carbohydrates. And I think I've shared this conversation with you before, but
Yeah.
just the fact that these people had no debt, um, no cases of depression, or at least what we'd recognize as depression,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, no poverty. Like, everyone was happy with what they had. The housing was probably better than ours in some cases, and much bigger than where I'm staying,
Yeah.
and beautiful wooden houses, all debt free. And I'm just thinking, and they're wanting to modernize, ask me about modernization. And I just said to them, look, as soon as you start to modernize, you're bringing an aspect of competition into the village, where you're producing 10 times the amount of fruit or vegetables
Right.
as the guy next door.
Right.
And what is it going to cause in the social dynamics? And
Right.
anyhow, that's probably a rabbit trail we can talk on another podcast. But that aspect of technology is important, but
Yeah.
more important for us in
Yeah.
the modern cities. In the
Sure.
villages in Papua New Guinea and that, you probably that we don't need to involve technology. And I've talked to people, business people, or done seminars in Uganda where that wasn't really even a topic. And yet, in some ways, they have technological solutions better than we. Like, I was on the back of motorbike taxis who were asking me, do I have M money? And they were wanting me to text them the money on my mobile phone. So
Oh, okay, okay. I was
they're
about to
actually
ask what is
more,
that, but it's like a PayPal that they
yes,
have.
has
Yeah,
some kind of money exchange. And in some cases, they're more cash free than we are in, well,
yeah.
certainly in Germany.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure, sure. No, I mean, I think there's no need to feel like we're digressing because I think that this is still like this is still online with in line with what I like to talk to people on my podcast about, which is it's I'm curating stories from life and business, you know, and
Yeah.
very often there's not a hard line. It's actually
Yeah.
it's it kind of you tend to meander along the that line, and so it's interesting, it's fascinating for me to think about these people that you're mentioning in Papua New Guinea and in the Pacific, and because the thing is that they're asking you to it's kind of like this this Faustian bargain, right? Where it's like they're asking you for, hey, we want to modernize because we think that's kind of what we want because that's kind of what everyone else is doing,
Yeah.
and you're kind of telling them, you're like, I don't really think this is what you want. It's like the moment, like you gotta understand that there are people out there trying to become like multi-million-dollar influencers just so that they can then take off and live
Yeah.
this life.
Yes. I was literally in the village and I thought, and they're talking to me, shall we make this like an international harbour here and bring tourists in?
Right.
And I was saying, as soon as you do that, you're creating some noise. And I've been
Yeah.
here in the village a week. I haven't heard a single boat motor. I haven't heard a single car engine. I haven't
Right.
heard a single generator or any other noise except for the odd bird.
Yeah.
Um, so, uh, and one change leads to multiple changes, and you need to think out the consequences. Learn
Right.
from our
Right.
mistakes is what I was telling him.
Right.
Grab the best of what we have, but also make sure you realise that not all of the changes are going to be good. And I would add also that, okay, in the West, we might have, we rely on our websites and that to get customer calls. And what these people have, they don't have power or websites or even computers, a lot of them. And but what they do have is their relational networks, which in some
Right.
cases give them all they need. And
Right.
sometimes we need to, in the business world, it's good to actually step back and actually see the simplicity of what business is in some of these places. We can learn a lot of lessons just with
Right.
their human network. That's their wealth. They can go
Right.
anywhere. I said, I just threw out the idea: would it be possible to walk around this whole island? And how many days would it take? And they said, oh yeah, I'd just walk until I found a relative and stay at their house, and they'd feed me happily, and then just keep
Yeah.
going. So the relational network was their power.
I remember you telling me in this in the past the similar conversation where you mentioned that they have an extraordinary memory, these people
Yeah.
on the island, and that there must be some there's clearly some kind of of enormous perception of network wealth that they
Yes.
perceive it because I remember you telling me, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I went there to visit a friend, and we hadn't seen each other for like 35 years. So he's asking me about people that he met in Australia while he was there, that mutual friends, and he was just pulling these names out of everywhere. And I think it's because, and I was thinking, wow, okay, yeah, that name rings a bell. And then he'd say, oh, well, he was short with red hair. And then I'd think, oh, yeah, yeah, I remember that person. But he had ready access to a heap of these names. And I think it's one because in the island culture, they probably put more weight on oral, uh,
Tradition.
yeah, tradition, stories, and stuff like that, and less on like paper and pen. So I think that's one thing that kind of facilitates the memory paths. And
Sure.
but it was fascinating, and also because of just the social aspects and the value and the importance of tribes. Um, the he had like a very good. He'd say, "Oh, this is Tommy. He's my cousin's third brother's uh, son." And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
there was like this, like I could just imagine if you uh, um, started talking to him and gave him a series of faces, that you could possibly end up with a family tree of
Sure.
like could be thousands of names, and
Sure.
that he would have some kind of mental pathway
Sure.
that I'd love to actually, if someone had the time to do that experiment, just sit
Yeah,
down
yeah.
and interview these people with all of the faces in the village and get them to place them on a tree and just see how many names appear on that tree.
I mean,
Yeah.
I remember doing something close to this with my own family. I remember the
Mm.
closest thing we because we have it in Latin American country families. Again, I'm sure that it translates to many families and cultures across time. But at least, speaking for my culture and my family, there was a premium based on this memory, but in
Mm.
particular, the memory of like where you come from and like your family tree. And I mean
Yeah.
that comes with a mixed bag, right? Historically, it's like because of how much colonial divide there was in South America and the caste systems, and so of course there's that. But the point is that it was something that's very prominent in their memory, and memories, and the oldest individual in the family is always tasked with kind of be knowing and being kind of like the keeper of this family tree, right? And it
Mm.
is
Yeah.
through telling the story then to the second born and to the third, and the second born telling it to the third born, and like that's how in a way the family keeps its integrity, right? In a
Mm.
way. And so I remember asking him, sitting down, because he was quite it was my oldest uncle Guillermo, and he
Mm.
was it was back in I think 2015, 2016. And I remember sitting down with him and asking him to I just said, I'm like, take me back as far as you can go. Just try to like really try to take me
Wow.
back. And we got as far back as like there were some obviously some lost chunks there, but you could
Mm.
tell that he had done his research on the family because we went back to like the early 19th, late 18th century, and
Wow.
with real names and locations and places and people. And he said, he speculated, he's like, I've done the research on the family, and I know I can tell you approximately what part of Spain the name came from, and who gave us that name we don't know, but because that's the part of history that was lost. But I can tell you that the name comes from around this region, and it was amazing to me. And this is the
Mm.
stuff that you really like. Try asking someone to do this today. It's like there's
Yeah.
no way. There's no way.
That is, yes, so sad too that we have like this epidemic of loneliness, and
Yeah.
there's something
Right.
that connects that people these days, I would imagine the average guy on the street might only have 20 names on his family tree that he could readily think of, maybe
Right.
even less. And yet
Yeah.
these people, where the um, like they really live that motto. It's not what you know, but who you know.
Right.
Um, this is one of their core values.
Right.
We it's maybe that's a good link to um, connect us to what we started with, where we
Yeah.
said the fear of not having a support network. I mean, that's something that wouldn't even occur to the people in the Pacific Islands, because they have that support network. And in other countries in Africa, it's quite often that the locals tell me there's no such thing as an orphan,
Mm.
because we don't think or act like Westerners, where you have
Yeah.
like a mum and dad and a kid. We're
Sure.
thinking a village.
Right.
The African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child.
Right.
And so for that reason, they don't really, the concept of an orphan just doesn't fit that African mindset, because
Right.
there's always going to be some uncle, auntie, someone that's going to
Yeah.
be um, taking care of that child.
Sure. It makes sense. It makes sense. It escapes my mind right now which culture this term is from, but it's why I understand that in some cultures it's quite uh terrible to eat on your own, for example. Like it's something
Mm.
that you just don't do, because there's such this there is as one of my friends who works in he works he's a cognitive scientist, and he goes, I am because we are. It's like
Yeah,
the identity is always a relative experience, and so the moment that so this disconnection is actually is an illusion, because you are
yeah,
connected in some way, shape, or form with other people, however loosely, and then it just becomes a matter of whether of which bonds you feed and you take care of, and which ones you
yeah,
kind of say, okay, well, those are not so helpful, because they aren't always helpful, right? So yeah.
yeah. Which actually, when you mentioned that, I thought of a story of when I was visiting a town of Alexandria in Egypt. And one night, I just wanted to chill. And so I saw that there was a cinema in town. And I went to go and see the Sherlock Holmes movie when it was out. This is like 13 years ago, or whatever,
Yeah.
when it first came out in the cinema. So I was there in the cinema, and it's not unusual for us Westerners just to go to the cinema for a time to chill by ourselves. I
Sure.
was sitting there, and this guy just came over and said, "Oh, you with anyone else?" And I said, "No, just by myself." And he said, "Oh, come and sit with us." And
Wow.
there was a group of like uni students, like probably they're all 10 years younger than me at the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
and maybe 20 years younger. But they didn't want me to sit by myself. And then they next minute, like, here's some popcorn. Here, you need a
Yeah.
drink. And they literally were
Wow.
feeding me and giving me drinks,
Yeah. Yeah.
and just showing me that uh, Middle Eastern hospitality. And then
Yeah.
after the movie, they took me to a restaurant and said, "Well, we're going to go and hang out and have a drink at a restaurant. Come along with us." And I'm still in touch with them now, 13, 14 years ago later.
Wow. There you
Should
go. Incredible.
So it just
Incredible.
made
No,
me
that's
think of it when you said that. So yes, some cultures, they have more of this community social mindset.
right. 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 I
Mm.
think I think that's a wonderful story to wrap our episode on, and to have people remember that regardless of where you feel you might be in terms of your network, that we're never really alone, and that it's as you said, It's a matter of staying open, right? Like if
Yeah.
you could have said no, you could have been like, no, I don't know you people, right? So instead of, but you stayed open, you're friendly, you're exploring, you're curious, and so having all of those things, keeping all those things in mind, while also remembering that that the networks that you have are the ones that you have and you keep, are the ones that you feed, right, and
Yeah.
nurture. And then if you can do that, then there's no, as you said earlier, you can almost ameliorate all of those other um, uh, concerns. You can almost
Mm.
completely
Yes.
just disregard them if you take care of the prop network properly. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
wonderful.
right. Because you can develop a peer network of,
Yeah,
hey, I've got this problem. What did you do? Or, hey, I need a website. Who did you use? Yeah.
yeah. Drawing from the collective mind.
Yeah.
It's a
Collective wisdom. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Pete, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Hey,
Please come
been a
again, and
pleasure.
we'll be in touch.
Been a
Take
pleasure,
care.
mate.